Welcome to The Edge of Wonder. We're your hosts. I'm Rob.
And I'm Ben. We'd like to welcome everyone to a very special series we've put together on communism.
And while it might not seem like it, this series is over a year in the making, touching the very essence of everything we've been showing you guys with the deep state and how they operate and function in the shadows.
Deep state, you say? Communism? You guys are just conspiracy theorists, right?
You might say that's true, except literally everything has been so carefully tracked with this communist specter that by the end of this series, you're going to feel like your lives have been turned upside down. We know because ours has been.
We've been there. Yes.
Yeah.
In this 5 to 6 part series, we'll take you through what communism and revolution really is. The history of secret societies only revealed through the emergence of communism, how the deep state uses socialism to obtain its ultimate goals, and the death tolls and destruction of communism in the West and the East.
As with every series we here at Edge of Wonder produce, we hope that this series sheds light on the true history we as the human race have gone through and empowers our audience to research what we've provided on their own, because we're a team.
So, without further ado, here's our series on communism.
Well, and let's start light. Who here has heard of Hitler?
Probably everybody, Rob.
Right. He's only the most evil arch nemesis known to man, right?
So, when everyone hears the word Nazi, what do they think of?
These days, other than conspiracy theorists, it's basically the worst thing you could call someone, isn't it? If someone doesn't like someone now, they call them a Nazi. I mean, Trump gets called a Nazi all the time by kind of uneducated people who have no idea what the word Nazi really means.
Or as a way to throw shade at someone they want to wound. But why is being called a Nazi one of the worst things you could be called? Of course, there was the genocide and the eugenics and mass murder targeting a group of people.
Right, I mean, it's fully awful. It went down in history as one of the greatest lessons, a lesson every country hopes not to repeat.
But has anyone thought why this is? When the Nazis finally lost World War II, there was a denazification movement.
Yeah, there were public trials of Nazi war criminals and the cleansing of fascist ideology. Now, because of that, the very word Nazi is tied to a sense of utter shame.
As we speak today, after all these years, there's still a hunt to bring former Nazis to justice.
George Soros. So why do we bring this up today? Doing a little data crunching, about 18 to 21 million people died in the Holocaust.
Of course, the true number could be higher depending on where you source this number. But we can all agree it's fairly accurate. Let's look at a quote from Hitler.
Did you know that Hitler claimed to be the real fulfillment of Marxist ideology?
He said,
"I am not only the conqueror, but also the executor of Marxism, of that part of it which is essential and justified, stripped of its Jewish Talmudic dogma."
Multiple sources have referenced this quote.
Anyone out there know the death toll from communism? A conservative estimate of the death toll of communism is a whopping 94 to 100 million people.
And when we say conservative, we mean it. The cover-ups from the Chinese Communist Party, from their communist famines and cultural revolution could estimate the death toll well easily over 200 million people or more.
200 million people.
So the question remains, why when someone hears the word Nazi, it communicates a sense of shame? But when we hear the word socialist or communist, people still think it's a good idea?
And this, my friends, is where the rabbit hole gets ever deeper. Here's a quote from How the Specter of Communism is Ruling Our World by the Epoch Times.
Although communists have fallen from power in the former communist countries, communism has never been tried for the crimes it committed on a global level.
Why has communism been so relatively untouched when the death tolls and murderous nature of it have been well known throughout the world? Is there a deeper reason for this?
Let's go back to our conspiracy theory guidebook called Bloodlines of the Illuminati by Fritz Springmeier. Heard of it? Yeah, we thought so.
As I have said numerous times, Hitler was of the Rothschild bloodline. A common practice among the top 13 families is to have an important child secretly or quietly without fanfare, and adopt the child out to another family. The child then takes on another last name, which hides the genealogy.
Did you know that the families in the 13 bloodlines funded communism?
The Rothschilds and other top satanic families in a lesser way financed a Jewish Mason and devout Satanist named Karl Marx to write his Das Kapital. The Satanists controlling key Masonic groups, along with other groups they controlled, got communism started. The original idea came from Satan and was given at a feast of the beast in meticulous detail to those highest in the satanic hierarchy.
Whoa, wait. So what is socialism and communism then? And why is it so important? Is it just this surface political ideology, or do the quotes allude to something else? There's a very important principle here, and we've said this throughout our Deep State series.
It doesn't matter if you all out there don't believe Satan exists, the Deep State does. Certain families in the 13 bloodlines even leave a place for Satan at the dinner table, and you can find this symbology in a lot of pop culture.
Karl Marx is known for his works, the Communist Manifesto and the Das Kapital. But Marx produced a lot of poetry too, which show the progression of Marx completely giving himself over to Satan, thus becoming his instrument in the human world.
The fiddler. How so? I plunge without fail, my blood-black saber into your soul. Thou art God, neither wants nor wists. It leaps to the brain from hell's black mists, till heart's bewitched, till senses reel. With Satan I have struck my deal. He chalks the signs, beats time for me. I play the death march fast and free.
Marx wanted to take revenge on God. He said in one poem called Invocation of One in Despair.
Invocation of one in despair. I shall build my throne high overhead. Cold, tremendous shall its summit be. For its bulwark, superstitious dread. For its marshal, blackest agony.
You could just take this to be some poetry if we weren't all extremely aware of the rituals the Deep State performs in blood. And if we didn't hear the quotes from the bloodlines of the Illuminati about communism's connection to their plans.
Marx's role was to establish this cult, but why? What is communism really? When communism was first created, the word Satan was regularly used in its doctrine. There were a number of people and groups involved in its promulgation.
The Communist Church was created by John Goodwin Barmby. Here's a quote about Barmby.
The struggle for communism, declared Barmby, was apocalyptic, bound to end with the mystical reunion of Satan into God. The Communist Church gave way to a belief system called Christian communism, which was completely, openly satanic.
So if you try to look this up online now, however, it gives you the modern understanding of Christian communism, where Christians have to answer to the communism, not the Christian God. You have to dig into the genesis of this philosophy to find the truth.
As the discussions flew back and forth on the form communism should take, Marx's Communist Manifesto was complete. The word Satanism was not used, and atheism was used in its place.
Atheism, this despiritualization of man, was the exact power play that would both allow communism to be spread and the key factor in eliminating man's connection to the divine.
Does everyone here know the Deep State's goals? There are many. It's not just one. Some people say it's to control money, some say it's to control power and consolidate power, some say it's to create the New World Order, some say it's eugenics.
Under the pretense of atheism, there is no God, no Satan, no spiritualism, and it's all superstitious. Thousands of years of civilization and history would be dissolved.
In addition, people would lose all property and all sense of self. And we don't mean that in the good way. Individualism was completely removed. Nothing was yours.
So in a nutshell, the easiest way to mind control a society is to take away their culture, have them believe in nothing, and that they came from nothing spiritual.
You're talking about thousands of years of deep state experience with mind control, from different esoteric practices to history manipulation to the darkest arts being pushed into a theology that would undermine humans and allow the elite's goals to become a reality.
150 years in the making. The ultimate evil specter. violence, hatred, and struggle. Traditions destroyed. The deep state's cult, communism.
So don't believe us? Marx's work was based on Hegelian philosophy. Where did Hegelian philosophy come from? Hermetic tradition.
Here's a quote from Marxist.org.
Hegel's library included Hermetic writings by Agrippa, Bain, Bruno, and Paracelsus. He read widely on mesmerism, psychic phenomenal dowsing, precognition, and sorcery. He publicly associated himself with known occultists like Franz von Baader. He, Hegel, stated in his lectures more than once that the term speculative means the same thing as mystical. He believed in an earth spirit and corresponded with colleagues about the nature of magic. He aligned himself informally with Hermetic societies such as the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians. Even Hegel's doodles were Hermetic, as we shall see in Chapter 3 when I discuss the mysterious triangle diagram.
Triangle diagram? Literally every avenue you take with communism all leads back to one form or another of mystic arts, secret societies, and Satanism.
It's safe to say the people we surround ourselves with in life influence us, right? So have you ever wondered what the people Marx hung around with had to say? Let's take a look at a couple quotes from them. Hein, who was a close friend of Marx, said, "I called the devil and he came. His face with wonder I must scan. He is not ugly, he is not lame. He is delightful, charming man."
What? Okay, Mikhail Bakunin was a huge influence on Marx. He says this about the socialist revolution. Quote, "In this revolution, we will have to awaken the devil in people to stir up the basest passions. Our mission is to destroy, not to edify. The passion of destruction is a creative passion."
If you understand the philosophy of Hegel, which stems from Hermeticism, this quote makes much sense. Their philosophy revolves around God coming into creation when he created the world. So then, what were they trying to do?
Marx believed that to fully spite God, he would recreate through revolution everything and hence become God himself. This is clearly stated in his own poetry.
But what is more fascinating is that the communism they decided to push suppresses the very beliefs that they came from. So what are their goals and why?
The machine of communism is revolution. When there's no revolution, communism would even cannibalize itself to keep the revolution going. Many people think the word revolution is a good thing, but the revolutions communism pushed were based in violence, forcibly overthrowing people, monarchies, religious entities, and government, leaving millions dead.
Then you might be asking, well, what are the goals of communism? A snapshot of the objectives can be found in the Marxist planks of the Communist Manifesto.
1. Abolition of property and land and application of all rents of land to public purposes.
2. A heavy progressive or graduated income tax.
3. Abolition of all rights of inheritance.
4. Confiscation of the property of all immigrants and rebels.
5. Centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of a national bank with state capital and an exclusive monopoly.
6. Centralization of the means of communication and transport in the hands of the state.
7. Extension of factories and instruments of production owned by the state, the bringing into cultivation of wastelands, and the improvement of soil generally in accordance with a common plan.
8. Equal liability of all to work. Establishment of industrial armies, especially for agriculture.
9. Combination of agriculture with manufacturing industries, gradual abolition of all the distinction between town and country by a more equitable distribution of the populace over the country.
10. Free education for all children in public schools. Abolition of children's factory labor in its present form. combination of education with industrial production.
Wait. So no property. So I can't have anything that's mine at all. I can't go buy a house and put all my stuff I bought in there. Extreme tax. Most of my money that I worked for isn't mine. Tell me where that money is going. In whose pockets exactly? I can't give or donate to anything I feel strongly about now. I just have to give all of my money to whatever elite person is in charge.
Exactly.
And wait, there's more.
No family inheritance? Nothing can come to me from my grandmother? Immigrants? That's people leaving the country. Get everything taken away? Well, so much for leaving if you don't like the way they're governing things. Centralization of credit, so the state has a monopoly on all the money. It's not your money, it's the state's. The state, the people overthrowing everything. We could go on from here, but you guys get the point, right?
Communism isn't freedom. Communism is a gang. And the rights of people would go into the hands of the people at the top of the food chain, which is the exact thing the people in communism feign to be fighting against.
Here are a few quotes from the Epoch Times series, The Dark Origins of Communism. Lenin would later push a similar concept under his idea of partisanship. There were those who supported the revolution and those who did not, and the ones who did not support it were marked for destruction. The idea that society should be divided into only two factions with no middle ground can still be found in today's political conflicts.
Quote, the French Revolution leaders preached collective good to justify the use of widespread violence.
The idea of the people invoked by these revolutionary dictators did not refer to the people of the country, but instead the people of the system they aimed to create, for the sake of these people to be created by the revolution. No crime was too great and no atrocity was too gruesome.
When many people think about communism, they think that it started in Russia, but that's not true. And we'll be getting into this in the next episode. Communism exploded into existence after long years of unrest in France.
In the CBS show, What Catholics Believe, Father William Jenkins, in a 1980 segment of the TV show, had this to say, quote, while the French Revolution called for principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity, the concept of total liberty they proposed is best described as total anarchy.
During the Reign of Terror, he said, Robespierre and his fellow revolutionaries slaughtered many French peasants. He said, based on the extremist logic, quote, people here had never seen violence like this before. People here had never committed a crime, but they had to die so that France could be transformed into a socialist society, unquote.
Socialism, you say? Doesn't everyone now seem to be preaching that? The results of socialism in every instance took the rights away from the people and allowed anarchy and death to rule in its place. This isn't us just saying this. This is the historic truth.
We'll be getting into the results of revolution and socialism throughout this series. Revolution has left millions dead, strewed about in the streets and the fields, even communist members themselves.
But let's wrap this up. All this talk about communism, but what's the real meaning behind it and its purpose?
We know the Illuminati were somewhat involved, right? And that usually when they're involved, there are deeper, more subversive things going on behind the scenes. So is it just that communism came about due to surface circumstances and philosophies?
Let's look at a quote from the Epoch Times specter of communism again. While there are many parallels to be found, there is one crucial distinction that is often overlooked. The Nazis aimed to eliminate the Jewish people, but the goal of communism goes beyond physical slaughter.
People of faith do not consider physical demise to be one's true death, since the soul goes to heaven or is born again in the cycle of reincarnation. The Communist Party uses killing as an instrument to plant the seeds of terror in the minds of the people, forcing them to accept its evil ideology. Through the destruction of morality, people's souls are fated to damnation. The Communist Party aims not just to destroy man's physical body, but also to destroy his soul.
The deep state's goal isn't just to eliminate our physical bodies. It's to herald in the apocalypse and murder people's souls. And the ideology they've chosen to do this, that spread all over the world, is communism. The early stages of communism is called socialism.
Socialism's goal is only communism. Socialism's goal is not to stay socialism, as we'll show you throughout this series.
The deep state believes order comes from chaos and wanted to smite and defeat God. Their goal is literally create hell on earth. They are trying to force the people of the world to disbelieve in the divine in hopes to drag people to hell, ridding the world of mindless eaters while they can live in peace with only about 500 million to 1 billion or so left.
Their so-called alien satanic gods would become rulers and gods, and the cabal would rule and enslave the rest of the population under them.
So now that we just said this, do you think we can't prove everything we just told you? In the next episode, we're going to reveal exactly how secret societies were involved in communism's creation and how the Lumadonkey came about.
We have it so exactly and perfectly sourced that it's undeniable. And through that, we're going to explain to you the true story of these secret societies and how they came about.
Who would have thought that communism would be the exact thing that would reveal the truth behind secret societies?
Stay tuned for the next episode about communism and Illuminism. Things are just heating up in this series. And as always, there wouldn't be any version of this where evil comes out on top.
So remember, there is a light at the end of this tunnel, and it's all our jobs to create that. Educating ourselves about this deep state cult is everything we need to dismantle it, and dismantle it we will.
Until next time, we'll see you out
on the edge.
I don't want you to do that, but like...
How so? I plunge,
not like-
plunge without fail, my blood black sable into your soul. Hagel's library included hermetic writings
Hagel's library included hermetic writings by Gripper.